Hi, good morning everyone. Our group will be presenting the legalization of marijuana and free trade with the USA. On this, we will be discussing by chapters, and to start with, we have it in our agenda. Next. On October 17, the Government of Canada, the first industrialized country that legalized and strictly regulated the production, manufacture, sale, import and export, and possession of Canada for adults of legal age. This is according to the Legalization and Regulation in Canada in 2022. According to the report by Deloitte, the Canadian cannabis industry was estimated to be worth $7 billion in 2019, with the potential to grow to $22.6 billion by 2025. The industry has created thousands of jobs in cultivation, production, distribution, and retail, with the potential to create even more in the coming years. The inclusion of cannabis in Canada free trade came into force on July 1, 2017, and is the successor to the Agreement on Internal Trade. The negotiations include the elimination of interior barriers to trade, including but not limited to provincial bans and taxes on products such as the vaping devices, and as well as the business registration and licensing requirements. The positive impact of legalization of marijuana is protecting public safety, combating the illegal market or such as the black market, public possession limits, and the disrupting of illegal cannabis market. There's also economic impact on the legalization, which is we split it into three. There's direct economic contributions, indirect economic contributions, and the induced economic contributions.
Hi everyone, I'm Robert, and today I will be discussing Chapter 3 and 4, which is measuring the economy in terms of GDP, economy, unemployment, and inflation. According to a report by Deloitte in 2021, it shows that the legalization of marijuana in Canada has significantly contributed to the country's GDP, wherein it contributed $43.5 billion in economic activity, whereby creating 151,000 in employment. So by 2026, it is expected to grow by 22.6 billion. On the illustration provided by Deloitte in 2020, it shows that the cannabis industry is currently undergoing a contraction phase, as it faces cyclical fluctuations and the additional economic challenge posed by the COVID-19. As a result of the economic downturn, distressed firms and assets sales are expected to increase due to a lack of available financing. The legalization of marijuana at the federal level in the United States would create significant trade opportunities for Canada and could open up markets beyond North America. With Canada being a producer of high-quality cannabis products, legalization at federal level in the US could create lucrative trade corridors for Canadian producers.
Good day everyone, I'm Marie and I'll be discussing the aggregate demand, supply, and expenditures in relation to the legalization of marijuana and free trade in the US. So according to Deloitte, Canadians are projected to spend around $7.17 billion on cannabis products in 2019. Once recreational cannabis will be legalized, overall consumption could increase by up to 35%. So the increase in demand can generate more job opportunities, higher production output, and increase prices in the marijuana sector, especially in the medical field. Next is the Government of Canada's report is that the Canadians' exports of goods and services to the US increased by 23.9%, reaching a historic high of $550 billion, while imports rose by 9.7%, reaching by $463 billion. So the free trade with the United States can have a positive impact on Canada's economy by providing Canadian companies with access to a wider market for their products and services. And now, according to a Deloitte Canada report, since Canada legalized recreational cannabis in 2018, the industry has already contributed $43.5 billion to Canada's national GDP, and the industry also has generated $11 billion in sales nationwide and made $29 billion in capital expenditure. So as you can see in the graph by the Statistics Canada, Canadians already spent billions on cannabis since 1961 to 2017 has been increasing.
Next, let's discuss Chapter 7, Fiscal Policy. The legalization of marijuana in Canada has had an impact on fiscal policy. With the government collecting taxes on the sale of cannabis product, the government has implemented an excise tax on cannabis products, which is currently set at 10% of the retail price or $1 per gram, whichever is higher. The legalization of marijuana and free trade with the US. It's the free trade in the US. Canada's economy is closely linked to the US economy. The two countries have a significant trade relationship with goods and services flowing between them. However, it can result in increased competition for domestic industries, which can lead to job losses and decreased tax revenues. In summary, both the legalization of marijuana and free trade with the US can have significant impact on Canada's economy. The government must carefully consider the potential benefits and drawbacks of these policies to ensure they align with their economic objectives and contribute to sustainable economic growth and development.
Hello everyone, my name is Salim Kishore. I'm here today to talk to you guys about Chapter 8, Money in Banking, and how it correlates with our topic. When it comes to money in banking, the history of money started off with bartering. Bartering is where goods are exchanged for goods of equal value. After this, we've seen currency come into play, where that was the new mode of exchange in modern day transactions. So when we talk about currency, we refer to coins, or as we know it today, the US dollar, Canadian dollar, etc. So when it comes to free trade with the USA, only certain states in the USA have legalized cannabis. So although it's legalized all across of Canada, there are some trade implications when it comes to trading with the United States, as some states have only legalized cannabis for the use of medical use or recreational use for adults only, and some other reasons as well. Now we will discuss banking uncertainty with the cannabis industry. Though many Canadian national banks operate internationally, the retail of cannabis is still illegal in many other countries, which makes many of our national banks hesitant to indulge in the cannabis industry due to trade implications and international regulations. However, some national banks such as RBC and CIBC do help grow the cannabis industry. They do only indulge in case-specific deals. This way, it helps them remain compliant with laws put in place surrounding the cannabis industry. A news reporter from CBC, Ballard 2021, has stated that CBC News has reached out to a few national banks, such as RBC and CIBC, regarding their compliance with laws set around the cannabis industry. Both have said that they monitor their relationships in the cannabis industry closely and on a case-by-case basis.
Hi, so my name is Nirmay and I'll be doing the chapter 9 and we're going to talk about money market and monetary policies. So let's talk about the supply of money. Annual rate at which payment is made for the use of money. The Bank of Canada controls the supply of the money in the economy, and let's talk about demand of money. It's the desire to hold money as a medium of exchange, and it's based on the level of real GDP and prices. Next. Adjustments in the money market. So people buy bonds when there is a surplus of money in the economy, and it's the vice versa. When there is shortage of money in the economy, people sell bonds. So the effects on the GDP. The legalization of marijuana was made beneficial for the GDP due to the expansion in monetary policy, which means that the rate of interest is lowered down by the government on purpose in order to increase the money supply in the economy, and the credit is made cheap for the people and it's easily available. And the industry is not only generating huge revenue towards the GDP but also massively contributing towards the capital expenditure. Between the years 2018 and 2021, 29 billion across Canada were spent as part of the investment in infrastructure and technology by the companies to expand their businesses. Next. And let's talk about the contribution towards the GDP. Legalization of marijuana has highly contributed towards the Canada's GDP. According to Global News, it has contributed roughly around $43.5 billion to the country's GDP. And for a different perspective on the economic distribution, consider that cannabis industry supports about 4 jobs in both Canada and Ontario for every $1 million of revenue in capital expenditure, adding about $1.09 to the Canada's GDP and $1.02 to Ontario's GDP. for every dollar of revenue of capital expenditure.
Hi everyone, I'm Kanishka and I'll be talking about foreign trade and foreign exchange. The first I'm talking about is the exports of medical cannabis. According to a report by Prohibition Partners in 2021, this data shows that Canada has exported 15.6 tons of cannabis flower and 7.3 kilos of cannabis oil and extracts during 2020. This makes Canada a single largest exporter, which is followed by Netherlands. Next, I'll be talking about the importers of cannabis from Canada. This report suggests that Israel is the largest importer of medical cannabis and flower, and Australia remains primary importer of cannabis oil. The largest European importer is Germany, where it has imported over 4 tons of cannabis flower and 5 kilos of extracts and oil. Medical cannabis is a very concentrated market, yet Germany imports 95% of Canada's exports in cannabis flower. Next, I'll be talking about the competition from abroad. The biggest competition of Canadian exports are countries like Netherlands, and the list keeps adding on with countries like Portugal, Spain, Denmark, Australia, and others. Producers specifically seeking to import in European markets need a very strategically planned niche marketing strategies. Next, we are talking about trade barriers, where Jamaican ministers have refused Canadian governments to allow them to import cannabis in Jamaica. Other producers have also noticed this restrictive imports, restrictions on imports, and thus they are known as non-tariff trade barriers. Talking about Canada-United States-Mexico agreement, this specific report states that Mexico government declared a prohibition of personal use and possession of cannabis in 2018, but decriminalizing it in 2021. This can open trade opportunities with Mexico, but under CUSMA, both Canada and United States have imposed restrictions only on consumption beyond certain THC consumption. Canada and US tariff schedule specifically includes Canadian and cannabis products and derivatives in their schedule.
Now on to our recommendations. The government should invest in public education campaigns to educate Canadians about the risks and benefits of marijuana, as well as to promote responsible use. Things like nicotine helplines and help me quit lines for the consumption of tobacco are open for public use already. Replicas of this should be created and advertised for the use of marijuana. Canada should also address cross-border issues. Rules and regulations have already been set on whether you are allowed to travel with cannabis across the border or not. Since many states across America are yet to legalize the use of marijuana recreationally, these regulations need to be better communicated to protect the interest of both countries whilst promoting free trade. Another recommendation we have for the Government of Canada is to research more in the production of cannabis. More specifically, research more on the production of therapeutic uses. This could result in new treatments for a range of medical conditions and create opportunities for Canadian growth in the cannabis industry.
So let's come on to the conclusion part. The first point is government should put a limit to the distribution of the marijuana, because it's not too healthy to keep on distributing it, and it gets in abundance, and that leads to a lot of bad things. First thing is the people are not much educated, and they take misuse of it and take it for granted. And then the second part is legalization has a positive impact on the GDP. As I mentioned before, that legalization of marijuana has had such a heavy impact on the GDP that it's already contributing $43.5 billion to the Canadian GDP. And the third part is increased safety. After the legalization, the products are thoroughly checked and they are obviously safe, and that is only after that they are sent for the distribution to the public. So there will be no harmful substances in it, and it's obviously safety checked.
And the last point is reduce criminal activity. Legalization can reduce criminal activity related to marijuana, such as trafficking of drugs that earlier used to be done illegally, but now since it's legal, there won't be any such activities because they also lead to gang wars, violence, and that leads to deaths and murders.